even if it's just in the moment and they go back to normal shortly after. I'm not sure if this is something other men can relate to or if it's all in my head. I recently went on a date with a woman, dinner and a movie, the classic. I paid for dinner and our movie snacks because we were quite full from dinner. I paid for the majority of the date. She paid for the tickets. I got this weird feeling when she had to pay. I can't put my finger on it, but it felt like an energy shift. It reminded me of something similar I experienced with an ex. I was working extra at university and came home late one day. My ex at the time asked if I had eaten. I said no, that I didn't have time to make something yet. She said not to worry and that she'd order me something. I was super grateful and told her so. However, I felt some tension, like maybe it wasn't 100% good for her. Someone mentioned it might be projection from my end, which I could definitely see being the case. Story 1. My first girlfriend invited me out to dinner and promised to pay. When the bill came, she looked at it and then at me. I thought she was playing around, but she didn't touch it. When the waiter came back, she kept staring at me, so I asked her if she was keeping her agreement. She gave me an attitude and started looking for her wallet. I just paid it and moved on. I found it strange because at that point we had been together for 2 years, and she never picked up a bill, not even the tip. I found it odd that she offered to pay and then backed out. It was a big part of why we broke up. Story 2. At this point, my girlfriend broke up with me a few days ago. She called me and invited me out to eat so we could speak about things. When the bill came, we had an awkward encounter with the waiter about paying. I'm not your boyfriend, and you invited me, so why would I pay? Story 3. I had a friend back in college who always asked us to pay for things when we went out, and she would pay us back at the end of the night. She said it made the experience better for her when she didn't have to pay at the moment. Story 4. My partner has the habit of saying, "I'll get this," with the money I put into our joint account. Story 5. Someone mentioned it might be projection from my end, which I could see being the case. Trust your instincts. There are women who are happy to pay their own way and sometimes cover your expenses. You won't have this gut feeling with them. When I'm with a woman like that, I'm more willing to pay for everything because I see she's genuinely invested. On the other hand, I've definitely gone out with women who say, "I'll pay for my own stuff," but then make a show of getting their purse while expectantly looking at me. It's just a huge turnoff. Every man is different, but I'm of the belief, don't offer unless you mean it. Story 6. For casual dating, I don't care. It is what it is. For a long-term relationship, this is a problem for me, especially as I've gotten older. We need to have a discussion about this. It seems we would have different expectations and needs in a long-term relationship. I'm not going to be in a long-term relationship with gender roles enforced in one direction only. Story 7. I haven't ever gotten that far, but if a woman can't contribute to a relationship from the very start, why should I believe she ever will? If you aren't an adult with all the unpleasant but necessary parts that go with it, then why should I be interested? I'm better off on my own. Story 8. Yes, not only with paying, even doing a favor for someone. I rarely ask for favors. I'm usually the one helping out others. Here's one story of mine. I didn't have a car at the time, and a group of us were going downtown after a get-together. I needed a ride, and I asked her for one as she was taking another friend there as well. As soon as I asked her, her smile turned to a frown, and after some hesitation, all she said was, "Sure." I almost changed my mind about getting a ride with her, but the other friend pressured us both to follow through. All of my female friends constantly ask me for help, like moving or school-related tasks, and when I need something from them, they are suddenly very busy. Who knows, maybe I have bad friends. The day I stopped doing things for them was the day that we stopped being friends. Story 9. My current significant other has paid for things twice in the 4 years we've been together. She still mentions it occasionally. One of my ex-girlfriends once made a big deal because I asked her to split a $20 liquor bottle with me. I was 20 years old at the time, broke, and had already paid for our dinner and driven 2 hours to see her. She had $500 in her bank account, and I had $50. We broke up 2 weeks after this. Story 10. This is one of those things that is not open to negotiation with many of them. Something I try to screen for quickly when I'm dating someone new. Story 11. Repeat it with me, class. Nothing dries the pussy up like a woman reaching for her wallet. Chris Rock. Story 12. My wife went 3 years without bringing her purse when we left home. I eventually lost my temper, having left it for too long, of course. Story 13. Brother, yes. They spend men's money with ease, but once it's up to them, they get cold feet almost every time. It's not projection at all. Story 14. Nah, I usually pay for dates because that's just how I am. But there have been multiple girls who have said, "You got drinks, let me get food," or something similar, and it was genuinely a good vibe. Story 15. The golden rule with women is very simple. Girls just want to have fun. Paying for things isn't fun. It's much more fun to be given things. Story 16. I dated someone like this. Obviously, we didn't work out. I'm sure there are men who are happy to pay for all their outings. But if this is something that bothers you and your significant other doesn't follow those values, just end it. Financial values are some of the more fundamental ones that are hard to reconcile if you don't share them. Story 17. My partner fusses at me when I try to pay and she said she would. Find someone who wants to take care of you as much as you take care of them. Story 18. Yes, every time. Women feel entitled to men's money but don't feel that anyone is entitled to their money. They are equal until being equal isn't a benefit to them. Then they want to be like children. Needless to say, nobody can take a person like this seriously. Story 19. Absolutely. My wife has money in the bank, yet has never and will never offer to pay for anything. If I say, "Wouldn't it feel good to pay for your own guitar, food, gas, car, clothing, or whatever?" she immediately gets upset. She has never even contributed towards one bill, yet we have a large house, 2 cars, a truck, and soon a work van on top of that. The other day we had to get chicken food for her chickens, and I said I forgot my wallet. She said, "Oh, no worries, I have mine," then used my credit card. It doesn't upset me, but I think it's how a lot of women are wired. I'm partly to blame for spoiling her so much. Regardless, yes, she gets very upset when I ask her to pay for something. Story 20. It's the passive-aggressive behavior that is the red flag. We all have different desires and preferences. And in the dating world, we are all just out there trying to find someone who's compatible. There's absolutely no room for miscommunication and time wasting. Some men want a partner, some men want a homemaker, and some men want a long-term maid, butler, chef, or courtesan. In my opinion, it's what you talk about on the first date, and I prefer to keep that date short and sweet. I have no problem buying a lady dinner once and sorting that stuff out, but I definitely don't want to invest a bunch of time, money, effort, and emotion on someone who wants something I don't. I'm the guy who wants a partner, and I respect men who want the others, and I respect women who want to be the others. In fact, assuming she's a genuinely good woman, I set them up and play wingman. What I don't respect is someone who's going through the motions, playing along begrudgingly, wasting my time, money, and effort, and making me catch feelings only to put her foot down one day and decide she wants to sit at home, doing literally nothing but eating my food, raising my bills, and expecting to be pampered in return for sex and companionship. I want to retire early, travel, and have someone who's not holding me back from that. Story 21. Yes, I've experienced this, especially with older women. Younger women seem happier to pay. Some even insist on it. Story 22. Before we dated, my now wife paid for everything because I was poor. She would offer to buy me dinner just so we could hang out. Sometimes she'd invite me over and cook for me. Once we started dating, I had a job that paid more than hers, so I began paying for things. Now our money is in a joint account, so who pays is irrelevant. Story 23. Yeah, gender stereotypes hurt in multiple ways. And this is one. You and women might believe you are all for equality, but we all carry subconscious stereotypes, some stronger, some weaker. Story 24. Yes, most women expect the man to pay for everything, and if you don't, it turns them off. It doesn't matter if they have a lot of their own money. They would much rather spend yours. Story 25. I bought things regularly for my ex. We split dinners, trips, groceries, gas, and bills. He earned more, so he'd pay a few more times, but I tried to ensure that he felt cared for. He was hesitant to accept at times but was very appreciative. Story 26. I'll take another angle on this. In a relationship, especially a long-term one, you aren't going to want to be intimate with each other every waking moment. There will be times when your partner does things that negatively impact your sexual dynamic. There will be moments when your partner momentarily turns you off, and there will be aspects of the relationship that aren't very sexy. If it's just a fleeting feeling, it really isn't something to worry about. She almost certainly notices you having similar responses to things she does. Story 27. She paid for the tickets. Did she offer to pay for the tickets, or did you ask her to pay for the tickets? I've never had the issues you're describing, but I've also never asked a date to pay for things. If they paid, it's because they wanted to. Story 28. When I ask a man or a woman out on a first date, I pay. I think it's the polite thing to do. But on dates after that, my preference is taking turns paying so that both people can choose places within their budget. If someone isn't compatible financially, that's fine, but I probably won't continue seeing them. Story 29. Oh yes, we have an agreement in our family. She pays for food, and I pay for everything else. Usually, she shops for groceries, but when I am with her, she just walks by the cashier and leaves me there. I look at her and she looks back curiously. Anyway, I end up paying and we leave without discussing it. Story 30. I once cried because I said I was going to buy my man a pizza, and then he wanted to pay. So I cried, and he let me pay, probably just to quiet me. Story 31. Not really. I've been on a few dates where the woman seems to take offense when I offer to pay. That involves the issues of dating dynamics and whether I expect something in return. I don't. However, I haven't personally encountered them being cold about it. Story 32. As a woman, when I was dating, I did get a certain vibe when I'd be asked to pay for something, especially if it wasn't my idea in the first place. I never said anything, but I did internally feel a certain way, especially since I was very independent and the men I dated weren't as much so. Then I got with my husband, who was incredibly chivalrous and always trying to pay for things and do things for me. I just wanted to take care of him. When he lost his job and was on unemployment, I was happy to support him in any way possible. He still did whatever he could to be the man, so to speak. Basically, as a woman, what I'm trying to say is that if a man is making you feel secure, providing for you however he can, and going out of his way, there shouldn't be any resentment or weirdness for you to pay for or do things for him. That was something getting with my husband made me realize. Story 33. I've had dates where she insisted on paying because it was our second date, and I had paid for the first one. Currently on vacation now, and my girlfriend is paying all the tabs because I got the hotel. This trope exists in movies and in the minds of the delusional. Story 34. Not the women I have known. They have always been bothered if I try to pay for everything. I tried that on the first date I went on, and she really did not like it. Story 35. I know this is a thread for men, but I thought I would offer my perspective as a woman. When my partner and I met, we would split dates. For example, he would pay for dinner, and I'd cover the drinks at a bar afterward and the Uber. I might pay for dinner and he would cover the movie and so on. As our relationship progressed, it became clear that I earned more than my partner, so I would pay for dates or trips because I had the extra spending money. When we moved in together, we created a budget that was fair for both of us based on our incomes. I pay a higher percentage of our bills and any leisure activities, and I'm completely fine with this because we're in a partnership. We are both committed to the life we're building together, and our money is shared. I think entering a relationship or even just going on a first date is about the mindset you have. Some women believe men should pay for everything, and that's fine if they find a partner who agrees. However, some women pretend they don't have this expectation, wanting to offer but hoping you decline. I find this deceitful, but unfortunately, it happens. That being said, there are women out there who have no problem splitting a check and contributing equally, and they won't hold it against you. You just need to find someone who shares your expectations. Story 36. I assume I'm paying if I made the date. With anyone, I'm firm about picking up the tab because I'm worried I'll have to insist a little to do so. The worst is doing it in front of the waiter when they have better things to do than wait for our discussion. It's the social anxiety of it all when someone isn't accepting a gift graciously. Story 37. Yes. It's like they are questioning all the life choices that led them to this moment. But to be fair, nobody likes paying for other people's stuff. Story 38. Nah, I split on the first date. I won't actually start paying for full dates until we've been on a few. I'm not a meal ticket, and I don't want to be with a woman who doesn't pay her own way. It has worked out great for me. Story 39. Yeah, never let a woman get too comfortable paying for things. If her friends hear about it, they'll set her up with someone new as soon as possible. Women paying for men these days is controversial unless you have been together for a while and it's been discussed. Story 40. Don't date women who expect you to pay for everything. Date someone who is genuinely invested in the relationship. People who care about you will offer to pay for a meal, will happily split the cost, and not make a big deal about money. I understand what it's like to pay for everything in the relationship and have someone take full advantage. It makes it seem as if they're only in it for the benefits. Be with someone who truly wants to be part of a partnership. Story 41. I would much rather either pay my own way or pay on the first date. If guys insist on paying, it can be a turnoff for me. I have had a lot of non-traditional jobs, and guys who feel they need to pay would probably be uncomfortable with me in the end. Story 42. I feel like the female equivalent of being emasculated in that moment. However, this only happens in the dating or courtship phase. Once in an exclusive relationship, I really enjoy splurging on my partner and giving gifts. But before being exclusive, it makes me feel less feminine and brings out the masculine side of me, which doesn't feel good when I'm with a potential partner. During courtship, everyone puts their best foot forward, so the logic is, if he makes me pay while still pursuing me, then what's going to happen once he's got me? This is the best it'll ever get. Story 43. Oh man, I'm sorry to be a woman in a man's space, but I have a question that goes with yours. I have always paid for myself and my dates. I've always made more and was raised to never expect anything, and if you have more, you should do more. But it took me years to find a guy who didn't care. The guy before him, whom I was madly in love with, left because I was too good for him. One of the reasons a friend of ours told me was that I made more, paid for things, was educated, and good-looking. Shouldn't those be positives? It's not the first time that happened either. Maybe it's possible that in society, women used to not be able to work and pay, and men always did. We're getting past that socially, and now maybe everyone is uncomfortable with the new normal. Maybe it'll just take a few more years. Story 44. Maybe they want to do the right thing by paying, but internally they are still a bit opposed or not used to it. They might not have malicious intent or even notice it, but the idea that a man should pay on a date is easy to subconsciously internalize because it's a norm that is propagated everywhere. So it might just feel a bit weird to them at first. Of course, that's only if the women aren't behaving passive-aggressively afterward, if it's really only a fleeting moment. Story 45. Why do you stay with these women? It seems like a significant red flag that becomes apparent within the first few dates. Story 46. I hate to be the one to tell you this, reader. If you've paid for everything in your relationship, congratulations on being a sponsor. You could put that on your resume. Story 47. No, I think this is an issue when you're lower middle class, but not middle class or higher. It's just not enough money to matter. Story 48. Yes, even if they make more than you or have more money, I still feel weird not paying. However, there is no shortage of people who use others for free things, which makes me hesitant. It wasn't this bad before. Usually, dates would go smoothly and lead to more. Nowadays, it's a toss-up with much more nuance. Story 49. I always offer for certain things, and I'm super assertive about it. I say, I got it, and I block the register with my body language, indicating I'm getting ready to pay. Other times, I say, who's getting this one? Sometimes he has already made it clear it's on him. Have I felt that energy change on my end if I wasn't expecting to pay? Once or twice. It doesn't happen a lot because I like to make sure I communicate beforehand, but there have been rare cases where I wasn't expecting to pay, and it threw me off for a moment. I don't, however, hold it against the person. Money comes and goes. Story 50. I don't date those types of women. Whoever invited the other pays. If you don't like that, don't ask me out. Story 51. My wife paid for our entire last vacation. Back when we were dating, she had no money, but to be honest, she never asked for fancy restaurants or dates. When she started working, I told her I'd invite her to a meal, so we ordered boneless wings and sushi, which was our usual order. In the rush, I forgot where my wallet was, and she mentioned from the bathroom, "It's in the kitchen." We were at her parents' place, and I saw her wallet and used her money to pay. When we noticed, we just laughed so hard. I likely never paid her back. The point is, she was completely okay with that, and now it's our internal joke. I'll invite you to X, Y, or Z with your money. If someone makes a big deal over a small amount of money, especially when they aren't usually the ones paying when you go out, it's time to rethink things. Times are hard enough economically speaking, and these people might expect you to take 100% care of expenses once you're living together. With times as they are, that is not a good plan unless you're extremely wealthy. Story 52. The difference of one thing. I don't know, maybe I should have just paid to keep the night a treat from you as a man. I'm sure she will be paying for other things down the line if it goes anywhere. Story 53. My girlfriend used to become upset when she borrowed money from me, and then I would remind her about the debt. Fortunately, she has since grown out of this. Story 54. Oh yeah, of course, because it's a question in her mind at that point. Is he going to let me pay? Even if they're fine with paying, there is still a good chance the guy will stop her and say, "Allow me." Some guys are testing women to see if they will pay, then at the last second step in when they see she would have. So, I think this is normal right now as the whole world is evolving to be a truly equal society where many gender roles and expectations are falling away. Washing the laundry is no longer women's work, and mowing the grass is no longer men's work. It's all just about individuals taking care of themselves. But because this is still new, there is some culture shock. Also, of course, many women want to not be expected to do laundry anymore, but at the same time, they definitely want the men to still pay for everything. Everyone wants that soft life. Story 55. I actually probably wouldn't date a girl who isn't willing to pay for the third date. I've been blessed to be with very good-looking, humble girls who don't mind paying at least half, if not more, sometimes. Story 56. That's how I broke up with my ex-girlfriend. She wouldn't say thanks or anything to me for paying the bills, and just expected me to pay every time. It wouldn't hurt to show some gratitude, especially if you are earning a living as well. She broke up with me after our trip to Quebec, and she asked me to pay for her business meals, which took me by surprise. It's also the way she would ask, as if I owed her. Story 57. If you get a woman to pay for you occasionally within reason, it should be fine. However, if you're relying on her to pay for things consistently, then you won't have a woman much longer unless there's a strong emotional connection. The moment she tells her friends she's paying a lot, trust me, they'll try to set her up with someone else. Story 58. If you are a man who works, you are immediately of interest to any woman, no matter what games they try to play. Almost every man with a job is in a relationship or married. On the other hand, almost every woman I've worked with has been single, possibly lifelong dog moms. If you pay for women, you are making a mistake. You should get them to pay for you if you have a job. Otherwise, women know their only options are younger, less mature men or being dog moms. Story 59. No one likes paying. Even men might feel unnatural when the payment time comes. But after paying, they let go and forget about it. You don't need to think too much about it unless they want to discuss it. Story 60. Yes, sometimes it feels like paying for things makes the vibe awkward. It's not about the money, but the shift in energy. Story 61. Nope. I love it when my girlfriend gets me things. You guys live in the Twilight Zone or something. Women are not this terrible. Some maybe, but probably the same amount as men. My girlfriend takes me out for lunch occasionally, and our relationship dynamic doesn't change. We have fun. We have conversations. We bond. Start disconnecting gender from the person, and you'll start noticing it's not the fact that she's a woman. It could just be who she is as a person. This behavior isn't gender specific. She could just be selfish. Story 62. As a woman, I really don't mind paying for a guy. My rule is that whoever asks the other person out has to pay, like the one hosting the date. Story 63. I am a man, and I even get a bit cold when I pay for things in the beginning. If it's already an established relationship with trust, and I know the girl is okay with treating me out here and there as well, then I'm more than happy to pay too. In the beginning, I feel like I don't even know you, so why am I subsidizing your meal? Maybe I am wired differently as a guy, but I lose respect for a woman who isn't able to also contribute to the relationship financially, at least close to an equal amount. I will insist on paying most of the time when I go out to eat with a girl, though, because I just consume far more food and typically eat some of the leftovers from the girl's plate too, so it's only fair I pay about 70% to 80% of the time for food specifically. Otherwise, I expect it to be at least a 60 to 40 split. I know most women are conditioned to want a guy to pay for most things, and most guys are conditioned to do the opposite, but it never really clicked for me. I'm thankful I've dated fairly financially generous women, though where none of this became a real issue. Although, in a way, some relationships ended partially because of money because I was a bit too selfish. I essentially want to take the girl's role financially in a relationship because that comes more naturally for me personally, but I realized how selfish it was and that I should be fair and think about my partner instead of going by what makes me feel the most loved or cared for all the time. I think if women thought a bit more maturely and rationally about this, they'd come to a similar compromise, which a lot do. Either way, traditional gender roles just don't work in the modern world for most couples, and we should all aim to be on the more generous side, but with a firm boundary to not be taken advantage of. To this day, I am still working on striking the right balance, so I don't always put my own needs over another person's. Story 64. If that makes you uncomfortable, leave. There are many women in the world, and not all act like that. That story from your ex is strange. Did you all live together? So why didn't she cook something for you instead of ordering food? Do women not cook anymore? Story 65. Women love embracing masculinity, but they can't stand a man not being masculine. This is why they can tolerate taking care of their man, paying the bills, and making him feel safe, as long as he's ambitious and not lazy. Story 66. When I was a broke, pathetic excuse of a man, my ex and I would take turns paying for our meals. My ex never minded paying for me even when I wasn't broke, but I'll never settle for a woman who won't at least pretend she doesn't mind paying sometimes. Story 67. Woman here trying to offer a different perspective. My boyfriend and I mostly split the bill, which I find the easiest. He paid for dinner on our first date because he knows I earn a lot less as a carpenter than he does as an industrial manager. Now it's like 55 of 45. If we only had dinner for 20 euros each once a month, I would be willing to pick up the bill. But if he insists on taking me out once a week and sometimes to a fancier restaurant, knowing that I would never do that on my own, because eating out that much means making compromised food choices the rest of the month, he has to pay for his own part or even pay for both of our meals. Even when talking about paying for cinema tickets, if it's the end of the month and I still offer to pay, I will seem cold and distant while pulling out my wallet. That's not because I don't enjoy paying for things, but because for a short moment, I'm a very responsible adult who has everything pre-calculated brain will turn on, making me rethink my choice, considering how I will have to make up for the money spent. Story 68. I dated a girl last year, and every time we got together, it involved alcohol. Now, I didn't pay for her drinks every time, but I began to notice she never got excited or turned on unless I paid for the drinks or meal. When I confronted her about this, she angrily stopped talking to me. Story 69. I've never had that experience in my life. Although my wife will give me her card so that it looks like I've paid, she's really paying. I think that's out of respect for me. She believes others may look down on me for letting her pay. So it's a man thing as much as it's a woman thing. Story 70. In my previous relationship, I never had to pay a single cent for anything. When I offered, he'd be shocked and would just happily take care of me financially. I was extremely happy with this arrangement. I ended up breaking up with him for unrelated reasons, but now I'm accustomed to this kind of arrangement. In turn, I really liked getting him gifts and doing acts of service he appreciated just to show him I was grateful. It was so cute the way he'd smile when I did things like that. Story 71. I've always followed the invitation rule. If you ask me on a date or invite me out, I expect you to pay and vice versa. If I ask a guy out to my place of choice, I intend to treat. If it's for an occasion, I'll cover the bill. Sometimes it's situational as well. I've paid during times when it's easier to use cash instead of a card. My boyfriends in the past have covered our dinner, and then I'll offer to pay the tip, drinks, or ice cream afterward. Pretty much, if the guy shows that he's expecting to pay and is willing, I'm more inclined to contribute, so he doesn't feel taken advantage of. I get what you're saying, though. I just cut off one of my friends because she always conveniently forgets her wallet, which is attached to her car keys, or never has cash, and then says she'll pay through Venmo or Zelle, and never does. Story 72. Yeah, it's called Women Shouldn't Pay. This should be in the Ask Teens forum sometimes. I swear. Why does this question even get asked? Story 73. Yes, the man pays unless she wants to treat you and it's her idea. Although I appreciate when a girl pretends to get out her wallet and offer. It's cute and noticed. Story 74. Maybe take the hint. It's not like that. Turns them off when they need to use their own resources while you're around. Social conditioning among moralizing equality enthusiasts. Aside. Story 75. Woman here. Think of the most attractive woman you can. Would you ask her to pay for the tickets? No? Now you understand the energy shift. When you let her pay for the tickets, she knew in that moment that while you might kind of like her, you're not swept away in your excitement about getting to know her. Story 76. I think the real problem here is that women are being passive-aggressive instead of openly saying they're not willing to pay for things. I personally think that the man should pay. He should show that he can provide. However, I would say that from the start, and if he doesn't want to, then I would not proceed. We would each save our time, energy, and money and go our separate ways. If a man doesn't want to pay for a woman, that's perfectly acceptable, but he should not burden her emotionally with his problems or expect her to do any housework for him. Story 77. It's only when you're dating them. Usually, I have my younger cousins and some other friends pay for me instead, and I just do a little dance behind them. Story 78. I'm learning a lot from these comments and would just like to say that I'm more reassured and confident now in my solution to this problem. Rock, paper, scissors. Seriously, when you're looking at the bill or the cashier tells you your total, look at each other and suggest rock, paper, scissors. If neither one of you immediately says, no, I got this, then rock, paper, scissors it. But if the vibe is light right off the bat, this should be discussed before the actual date, right? Like if a woman likes to be spoiled and showered with money, surely there are men who love to do this. And vice versa, some men hate to always pay, and there are women who love to pay. Story 79. To be honest, I am definitely evaluating. If on the first date my partner doesn't pay and we split the bill, I won't be going on a second date even if it was wonderful. If we have been in a relationship for a long time and he pays for everything, I definitely don't mind and would even feel guilty if I don't pay every now and then for small things like buying us ice cream, tickets, presents, coffee, or drinks. However, I don't want my partner to expect me to pay for anything. It is and should be the sole responsibility of the man. If I spend money on us, it is because I want to and choose to support financially as well. The moment there is an expectation, it is a huge turnoff. So, you are definitely right if you felt a change in energy. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.